Rudeness. The act of being impolite, ill-mannered, or having a startling abruptness. If that reminds you of New York City or Boston, well, then you're probably from New York City or Boston. There are so many parameters to look at when making this list, but a few jump to the top. Being absorbed on your phones, being obnoxiously loud in public spaces, and not letting people merge on highways. Several polls, including one from Business Insider, had people self-report on the rudeness of their own cities, so as the famous Maya Angelou's saying goes, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. This list is somewhat subjective because, to be honest, many New Yorkers will point fingers at the South for rudely holding up the line, making conversation at a grocery store. And as for letting people merge, a New Yorker or Bostonian would grimace at the thought of letting someone merge because it is rude to all the people who are in the proper lane. So you can see how this list can get complicated. Less complicated is that Rhode Islanders self-identify as the rudest state, but are they home to the rudest city? Find out as we count down the 10 rudest cities in America. Some cities will be shocked that they made the list, while others, yes, we're talking to you, New York, may wear it with pride. Stay tuned for a few of the politest cities as well. Number 10 is Houston. You may be surprised how many cities in the South make this list. It's not all sweet tea and yes ma'ams in Houston. We didn't have to look far for this one. Houstonians self-reported their city's rudeness score in a poll. It is the 10th rudest city in the US, but the rudest city in Texas. It probably goes without saying that urban areas will rank higher on this list as the fast-paced lifestyle, heavy traffic, people congestion, and stress can seep out in people's behavior. An interesting correlation on this list is that many of these top cities were also the top worst traffic cities in America. Houston is the 9th worst city for traffic in the US, with the average Houstonian sitting in traffic an average of 75 hours per year. Many cities on this list also have extreme climates, and Houston is no exception. Houston is the 3rd most humid city with an average humidity of 75%, well above what's considered normal and comfortable for humans. Compound that with the heat, and it's no wonder they're rude. Houston was also ranked as one of America's lowest tipping cities, so they aren't even polite to their servers. Number 9 has fluctuated on this list over the years, but Los Angeles grabs this spot. Contrary to Houston, LA cannot use climate as an excuse for cranky behavior because they have a pretty much perfect climate. Now, if you want to talk traffic, then LA is back in play. It has a horrible reputation for traffic, pollution, homelessness, narcissism, fake Hollywood types, and more, so I don't think too many people are shocked that LA made this list, except for maybe those who have lived in LA long enough to remember when it was small and charming. Los Angeles is very possibly the victim of stereotyping, but are they actually rude? One study reported that LA has some of the rudest restaurant patrons. Servers describe LA patrons as snobby, carrying an air of superiority and lousy tippers. The drivers are no better as they tend to be overly aggressive, which can read as rude to a polite southerner driver doing 30 miles per hour in the fast lane. They tailgate, seldom let you merge, are over-reliant on their horns, and have been accused of being almost as bad as Boston. Almost. Number 8 is Washington, D.C., and if our politicians are setting the example, then the only shock is that D.C. is number 8. The Washington Post gives a potential reason for D.C. being on this list, which may make locals feel a bit better. D.C. is a transient city. Most people are there for work and just want to get to work and back home. They are fast-paced while battling traffic, tourism, public transportation, and extreme weather. It's hot and humid all summer, cold and wet all winter, with a rare few months of pleasant days. The metro system has long, slow escalators and is overcrowded. People bump into each other and push past each other more than in other cities. In a small rural town, pushing past someone would be overtly rude, but in such a crowded city, that rudeness is jaded. Because you are likely not bumping into too many locals, DC is an anomaly on this list as the city is likely getting its reputation from those who live in the surrounding suburbs of Maryland and Virginia. But not so fast. As we said earlier, some of these cities got their reputation from self-reporting. The same article that cites outsiders for being the problem also notes that locals are the problem too. They claim to be fed up with all the tourists. So whether you work in DC, are on vacation in DC, or actually live in DC, apparently you are all the problem. Before we continue to pick on the Northeast, we head back out to California. San Francisco comes in at number 7. It's hard to turn on the news and not be overwhelmed with a list of its problems, from a housing crisis, unsustainably high cost of living, drugs, homelessness, filth, and so on. How could you not develop an abrasive attitude from living there? Another city with a perfect climate but less than ideal traffic. San Francisco is also the 8th worst city for traffic, and sitting for hours on end to go 1 mile will make anyone rude. One study says that San Franciscans bump into people more than in most cities because they are face deep in their phones. That lack of awareness to the point of physical contact definitely helps San Fran earn a spot on the list. Many people also cite the homeless population as being ruder than any other city, with over 7,800 people unhoused in the city, many of whom feel marginalized and targeted by city policy. It's no surprise that they too might have a rude exterior. Number 6 is Detroit. We almost don't even need to elaborate further. Number 5 on this list is... okay, just kidding. Detroit has seen better days. Those who still call it home have experienced urban blight, crime, crumbling infrastructure, and a reputation that is probably worse than the reality. It takes resilience to live in Detroit, but that translates into rudeness on this list. They don't have a traffic problem, but they do have long, cold, snowy winters with lake winds. The harsh environment can easily lead to a harsh attitude. Locals were ranked as some of the nation's most unsociable. Detroit natives are said to be loud in public spaces and terrible drivers, often not even bothering to stop at intersections. Many people in Detroit, unlike some other cities, have challenged this reputation. The city has been called America's comeback kid, with a thriving boutique hotel scene and new restaurants. Locals will tell you to visit a local joint and talk to an actual local. They are very friendly. But since many people are only passing through, what they are left with is a hardened people with a hardened exterior. Number 5 is a huge surprise. Boston. The surprise? That it's only number 5. This city needs no introduction when it comes to why they are rude. They have abrasive accents, and yes, that doesn't make them rude, but it makes them sound rude to outsiders. Their driving is so bad, the nickname "masshole" is used to basically describe anyone in the state. Their sports fans will flip over cars and will roll down their windows and curse out anyone with a New York license plate for the crime of being from the same state as the Yankees. They have a long-standing reputation for rudeness, as the independence of our country can be thanks to their rudeness. It was in fact Bostonians who dumped tea into the harbor to show the British what's what. Their winters are long and brutal, which helps keep the people content in their rudeness. In 2015, Boston broke its own record by getting 110.3 inches of snow. There was literally no place to walk, so yeah, they might bump into you and not say sorry while navigating between the tight alleys of snow walls. Even when someone is being nice to you in Boston, a non-native may mistake the harshness of the accent for abrasiveness. Despite all that, Boston is one of the coolest cities, and if you get to know a local and pretend to be a Red Sox fan, you may find them to be quite nice. Number 4 is Las Vegas. The gambling capital of the US is loaded with people who are highly intoxicated and down hundreds of dollars to a penny slot machine. So yeah, they may seem rude. The rudeness comes from locals and tourists alike. The locals are sick of the tourists, and the tourists are too drunk to say "excuse me" or "I'm sorry." In the defense of Las Vegas natives, which are a rare breed, the self-reported study ranked themselves as rude because of transplants. Longtime natives claim that transplants are rude for not acknowledging strangers. They think that transplants are loud, self-indulgent, and disrespectful of the natural beauty that surrounds Las Vegas. Most Las Vegas transplants are from California, so their ranking may say more about California than those with a 702 area code. Only 26% of all people living in Nevada were born there. 1 in 5 Nevadans are actually from California, so this city stands out on this list, since most of the residents are actually not from the city. Between transplants and tourists, Las Vegas definitely earned its spot here, much to the chagrin of the locals. Number 3 is New York City. Another surprise. that there are two cities ruder than the Big Apple. New Yorkers have a reputation that precedes them. They rarely make eye contact and are fast and efficient, which leaves no time for small talk. Like Boston, DC, and San Francisco, they walk a lot, so they would never get anywhere if they had to stop to help every tourist navigate the subway system, guide each and every wide-eyed transplant, find the address of their next theater audition, and so on. If you've ever lived and worked in New York, you know that the city doubles in capacity around Christmas time. This means just grabbing lunch, going to work, or even meeting a friend can triple in time and crowdedness. They will brush past you and keep walking. It's just how it is. They don't think they are rude, they just value efficiency. As for the drivers, well, this one is debatable. While not as bad as Boston, many New Yorkers pride themselves on being assertive. If you are from out of state, you will probably just pull over into a rest stop, curl up into the fetal position, and pray you never have to get back on the road. As for ordering a bagel or a coffee in New York, you better know exactly what you want before you get in line, because the clerk will just skip over you if you hesitate for a mere second. Number 2 is shocking, as the South is rarely on the list for rudeness, but Memphis, Tennessee chimes in. In the poll, Memphis hit every metric for rudeness. They are loud in public, spend too much time scrolling on their phones in public, and are bad drivers. Memphis should be proud though. It takes a lot of effort to out-rude New York. Memphis is called out for not acknowledging strangers in public, even when standing together awkwardly in an elevator. They are also cited as watching videos in public spaces without headphones. Most people can agree that is so rude and frankly annoying. Good luck listening to the blues on Beale Street because you'll be competing with a local's YouTube video. But hopefully they are watching this channel. Memphis natives say, Beale Street is only for tourists, so it's not us being rude. Probably true, but still, you are being called out, Memphis. Before we get to number 1, let's hear about some of the politest cities. Number 5 is Indianapolis. Coming in at number 4 is Memphis's big sister, Nashville. Number 3 is Fort Worth. Number 2 is San Diego. And coming in as the politest city in America, Austin, Texas. No one from the Northeast made this list, and I'm sure they'd like to keep it that way. They have a reputation to protect. Lastly, number 1 is the city of brotherly love. That's right, Philadelphia. Unlike many other cities on this list, Philly is made up of a lot of locals, generations of locals. One of the traits that outsiders think make them rude is their extreme pride of being from Philadelphia. Many locals have learned to keep to themselves, which would easily read as rude to a tourist or new resident. Philly ranks in the top 10 worst cities for traffic. It's hard to be pleasant when you get home after an 8-hour workday followed by 9 hours of traffic. Like Boston, they have aggressive sports fans. They are very insistent about the best places to get a Philly cheesesteak, so don't ever challenge a local when they tell you that you have to try a certain place. They are living in the shadow of New York City, so the chip on their shoulder may also be a reason for their rudeness. It's a tough place to be, Philly. Despite being the rudest city, it has a thriving arts scene, great restaurants, and the best place to learn about American history. So keep it coming, Philly. We still love you. If your city isn't on this list, don't worry, because Americans as a whole are ranked as some of the rudest tourists in the world, so we can all compete with this list in some way.